Lonely Monk Productions. I don't know if y'all have heard Safe Word by Halsey yet, but yo!
That's my joy!
Hey, yo, displace the guilt and embrace the pleasure. You're tasting things that don't need to be measured. You ain't being What's judged, good, friends and family, neighbors near and far? Welcome to an all-new episode of the Yo, That's My Jawn podcast. The podcast, website, brand, movement, way of life dedicated to the embrace and championing of your passions. I'm your host, Nate Runkle, a.k.a. John Havlicek, a.k.a. Nate 3.0, back at it again with yet another episode of the podcast. As always, I hope this podcast finds you all in good health and in good spirits. On today's episode, I talked to the director and producer behind the new HBO sports documentary Celtic City, Lauren Stowell and Gabe Honig. We have a great conversation about the doc and the legacy of the Celtics and more, and that is coming up in a bit. But first, how are we doing out there on the receiving end of this podcast? Hope you are all staying somewhat sane in the face of this crazy world we find ourselves living in. This one's a fun episode I have for you today. You know, obviously living and growing up here in the Philly area, the Sixers have throughout my life always been my team. When I was young, I knew of the Bird and Magic rivalry, but to me, no one could ever top Dr. J. He was more than a basketball great. I thought he was a damn superhero. And cool. The doc was cool as hell. So while the Celtics-Lakers became a thing, the rivalry between Philly and Boston reigned supreme in my head. It still reigns. You know, I still have a chip about the Celtics. So much so that when the opportunity presented itself to do this chat, I do confess there was a bit of an oh, hell no moment in my brain. But all of that quieted the moment I started watching the documentary that Lauren and Gabe put together. This thing is masterful. And as much as it is about the Boston Celtics as a franchise, it's about so much more. It's about the league, it's about the players, and it's about race. You know, the way Celtic City throughout its 9 episodes confronts the racial issues of not just the team and the sport, but the country at large, it's incredible. If you have HBO, I'm telling you, you gotta see this thing, man. It is truly brilliant. I should note, this interview was part of a virtual press junket, so it's a bit more abbreviated than a normal episode and does not feature the jauntlet, though I do slip in one-hit wonder versus question at the end, so be on the lookout for that. And, you know, if you're joining us for the first time or you haven't done so yet, you can check out www.yothat'smyjawn.com for the link tree to all things Yo, That's My Jawn. The website, the socials, the mailing lists, merch, guest appearances on other podcasts. It's your one-stop shop for all things Nate. And of course, you can follow us on the socials at Yo, That's My Jawn and check out the Substack at yothat'smyjawn.substack.com. Right on. Let's get on with the show. My guests today are the director and producer team behind the new HBO sports documentary Celtic City, the 9-part series that covers the entire history of the Boston Celtics, all the way through their 2024 championship victory, and marks the reunion of the 30 for 30 team of Bill Simmons and Connor Shell. Folks, it is my honor to welcome to the show Lauren Stowell and Gabe Honig. Ladies and gentlemen, I am joined today by the great Lauren Stowell and the great Gabe Honig. Guys, thank you for joining me on Yo, That's My Jawn.
Thanks for having us, Nate. We're looking forward to this conversation.
Excited to be here. Yeah.
So, before we even get started, I started to watch some of the series and Celtic City for those catching up with us just now, coming out on HBO. Actually, by the time this airs, it will have just come out or whatnot. But I had a bit of a challenge, and that challenge is I am a lifelong 76ers fan, okay? And I gotta say, I had to eat a lot of stuff to be able to watch this, okay?
We appreciate that you supported this in spite of, the team.
Well, I'll tell you what actually helped, and that was just to kind of throw it back a few years. Lauren, you were involved in the Dutch Destroyer piece on Lucas Custers, and you are. I'll give you a pass on this Celtics thing for that and that alone.
Oh, thank you. What an honor that was to tell that story with Carson Wentz. And yes, so I do have that Philly connection through, Yes, the Eagles in that story.
Yes. So thank you for that, Gabe. I'm also not going to forgive you for the captain. We're already on bad terms here, but I appreciate
That's
your
okay.
work. No,
Thanks.
I'm just teasing here. But no, the Celtic City is absolutely phenomenal. What I've seen, I've only been able to catch up on 2 episodes so far. In preview of this, but how does it feel now that we're here on release weekend to get this out and share it with the world?
Oh, it feels amazing, honestly. I mean, it's been 2 years for Gabe and I that we've been pouring everything into this story, into this film. And we've been doing it in a vacuum, Nate. It's like we feel great about the story that we've told, but I think what's really going to be exciting for me personally is sharing it and starting to hear the conversations that some of these episodes spark, the moments that really resonate with people. That's what I'm most looking forward to is getting it out there, and let's get out there and talk about it.
For sure.
Absolutely. I mean, that's what we do this for, right? It's like, you know, at the end of the day, you're making something for people to see. And yeah, it was, last Friday was the premiere, and being able to watch it in a room with nearly 200 people. It's just like, that's not an experience when you're making TV that you get to do very often. And hearing people react at the right times, laugh at the right times, gasp at the right times is really cool. And yeah, I can't wait. As Lauren said, like the discussion that will be sparked by some of the things here. And I think it's a really entertaining watch too.
Yeah, one of the things that kind of jumped out at me, especially in the first two episodes, is you didn't pull any punches when it comes to the race relations of Boston and the team in the early days, which to me is one of the most fascinating aspects of essentially bringing a championship to a team. For someone like Bill Russell to bring a championship to a city that doesn't respect him as a human.
Mhm. Yeah, that was really important, I think, for me, for our team. Like, I really wanted, I don't think there was a way to separate, and nor did we want to separate the city from the Celtics. It was always, we knew that it was always going to be about this relationship, what it meant. What do the Celtics mean? What does the city of Boston represent? And by no means do I think that we've completely solved it or explored it in every way possible, but I think we did our best, and I tried to do my best in addressing it head on, and trying to understand it, trying to understand where the perception and the reputation of the city of Boston as, being a quote racist city. I mean, that's what we heard. That's what people told us when we would sit down and ask these questions in the interviews. And we wanted to really understand where that came from and whether it was earned. And I think that, I'm hoping that we do through each of these episodes, it is a thread. The idea of, Black empowerment in America, you can tell that story through the Boston Celtics. You can tell it through the NBA, but specifically the Celtics, some of the barriers that they broke in the 1950s, drafting the first Black player, the first Black starting five, first Black player coach. Those are things that, our team and myself personally didn't really know until we really got into this journey. And I think trying to trace that lineage from Bill Russell to Jaylen Brown today was another very, very important, thread for us to weave through every episode.
Yeah, and the
Yeah.
why, why don't like, why isn't it known? Why isn't the Celtics like role in moving this country forward? Why isn't it more well known? And that's a question that we kept asking ourselves throughout the 2 years. And as well, I got to give credit to the Celtics. They never told us to shy away from any of that stuff either. And I think that's an important part of their story.
I'm glad you mentioned that because that was actually going to be my follow-up question was there any resistance? So not from the team, but anyone that you talked to, was there any resistance in kind of exploring that or?
I, no, I mean, what was actually surprising to us, Nate, was how many people wanted to talk about it. And I don't know why that was. And maybe it's just like where we are right now. And at that time, 2023, 2024, I think we're able to have these conversations and to have like a real discourse around issues of race, identity, racism, progress, all of these things, I think, were kind of on the table in these interviews with people that I wouldn't expect would want to talk about it necessarily, whether it was the reporters we were interviewing, players from every era were very open to sharing their experiences, moving through spaces in America or in Boston. And so that was really, I think, it was really interesting for me to see that. I don't think I expected people to be as open as they were.
And I think it's also like, it was one of the driving forces from the beginning of Lauren's vision here is to make sure that, like, look, the Celtic story has been told in parts a lot. It has. But not everyone has gotten their chance to tell their part of the story. And Lauren's ethos for this was like, we want to ask everybody everything. And I think what this film does is that it allows some people their chance to really tell their side of the story. And that to me was like so amazing and refreshing. And I agree with what Lauren's saying. I think it's a lot has to do with where we are right now.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely like the time to talk about it, and I think like like you said, like there have been so many Celtic stories, but like it's something that's so baked into the Boston culture and the history of the team that I just the way you guys handled it was absolutely brilliant, and I welcomed it very much. There's a gravity of being tapped to tell the story, essentially the story of the franchise in its entirety, but add on top of that the reuniting of the 30 for 30 team. When you guys get the call up for this, like, now, you guys are no, rookies at working in sports documentaries and whatnot. But like, how do you reconcile the weight of like, all right, this is this is the biggest thing?
I mean, still reconciling, right? I mean, it's a huge, I mean, on HBO, 9 parts, 9 hours. I worked with Connor for, years and knew him at my time at ESPN. And I knew, the kind of storytelling that he is associated with and he does. Bill Simmons, knowing the level of basketball and Celtics knowledge and fandom that he brings to the table, Gabe and I knew this was not going to be an easy task by any means. We also had the Celtics, we had the NBA, that we also were in lockstep in close partnership with, who were watching everything we were doing. And but it was, I mean, honestly, I really welcomed the challenge, and I felt like we had a great amount of support within that. We had Jackie McMullen, who was a consulting producer on this. I mean, she's an institution. What a treat for us to be able to learn from her and to pick her brain about these years and these eras that she lived and breathed this. And yeah, so I mean, while it was a huge responsibility and there was a lot of pressure, all of those individuals we just talked about like are bringing something to the table for us to be able to bounce things off of or to review our cuts and give us their honest thoughts and opinions. And that made me a better storyteller, in the process.
Yeah, I think the last thing Lauren said, it's like all those challenges, I think just they got to make you better, right? There's no other alternative. And, it's one of those things where you go into it and you're like, all right, I've always wanted to work with Connor and Libby Geist. I've always wanted to work with the executives at HBO. I've always wanted to do something for HBO. So like, okay, well now I got my wish. And here we go. And I never thought, just because of Bill Simmons is, not, he Ringer Films, like I just didn't think I'd ever get a chance to. But yeah, I've been listening to Bill for 15 plus years, his podcast, and being like, okay, like we're telling the story of his favorite team, and like, all right, like fucking bring it on, man. Like, yeah, to me that pressure just makes me say, okay, well, what can I do today to meet that challenge? As tried as that sounds, but like that's the motivation. To me, it's like more about like what I just want to know what I'm capable of. And then just getting to work with people like Lauren and our team, like yeah, it was just one of those like magical projects where, it was the people and the project together. And yeah. Did we have moments of stress? Yeah, 100%. I didn't have any gray hair before this entire project started. But yeah, other than that, yeah, no, I mean, but we had laughs, and look, we're still laughing. Laura and I are still talking. It was an amazing challenge. And I hope that it shows up, with the viewer. I hope they're entertained, and I think they will be.
For sure. Oh, for sure. So coming into this, you mentioned that it's Bill's favorite team. Who was your guys' team? Like, are you guys? I'm gonna guess Gabe, Knicks. Yeah.
Yes, I was cursed. I was cursed with that one. Yes.
Yeah. Lauren, how about you?
I'm a New Englander. I grew up in Connecticut. So Celtics are my team, but I'm going to be very honest. I was not, I mean, a child of, the 90s. I was a UConn basketball fan. So
Yeah.
my fandom with the Celtics started when Ray Allen joined
Oh,
the Celtics.
sure.
When the Big Three came together in '07. I was like, go Celtics. Like that was when I really became kind of a fan. But no, I'm not like I wouldn't say I'm a diehard in the same way that like it worked really well. Like there were things that I was genuinely surprised about that was refreshing for me to learn about in a new way. Gabe had his cynical eye and his cap on. He was like paying attention to everything from a very different perspective. One of our producers, Sasha, is a Bulls fan. So we had a Rockets fan, right, on our one of our keys. So we had like an eclectic mix of individuals with very different loyalties. Our EIC was actually a 76ers fan.
Right.
Is. Yes. So that was, we were represented from all ends of the country, Yeah.
That was actually going to be my follow-up question, because I feel like you may have played Havlicek stole the ball clip maybe one too many times for me. That was like just a dagger in the heart, but okay, I'll forgive you again.
Yeah. We had to do it. I'm sorry.
I get it. I understand the temperature. So, studying multiple errors in the entire life of the team, is there any error that stands out to you that maybe even not going into it, but coming out of it and spending all that time with the footage that you most enjoyed living in for the past 2 years, essentially?
Oh, gosh, there's little bits in every era that I was, drawn to, but I was most surprised by the '70s. I mean, like Gabe will tell you, like we uncovered some really rare 16 millimeter footage that like really, changed the game as far as just being able to tell these stories of these games and these players and bring some of this stuff to life. But I think what fascinated me the most was just how the racial climate in the city, thinking about busing and the images of hate and division and segregation and fear that were running rampant in the city at that time in the middle '70s. And to think about the fact that we were able to also tell the story of great triumph, right? And this kind of story of a team that brought people in the city together. And that's going to sound kind of, like woo woo and, but it was real. Like we spoke to, Dr. Ted Landsmark, who is the man who's in the infamous picture on City Hall Plaza where he is being attacked by a young white teenager wielding the American flag. And that picture, was shown around the world. And this man, Dr. Landsmark, he told us that the Celtics were a great source of healing, that it gave him great pride to be able to come to City Hall Plaza in 1976 after the Celtics won their championship and to see the city coming together, black and white, during a time that the city was so divided. I thought that was just really fascinating and rich with story. And I'm just really, I think, proud of that. I think we all are proud of that episode of striking that balance, between what was going on in the city and what was going on in the team.
Yeah. For me, I'm going to a total different vibe here. Look, we all know Larry Bird is one of the top 10 greatest players of all time. But geez, I mean, my God, the guy's so fucking good. Like watching these highlights, you're just, I grew up in the '80s. So like, it's not like I wasn't exposed to it, but you're watching it now and you're like, holy shit, this guy is an insanely talented basketball player. And that, like, yeah, jaw on the floor. We're watching episodes we've been watching for 2 years now, and I'm still gasping at some of these plays that Bird made.
Yeah. One of the things that also, especially the Celtics as a team, I feel like there's few teams anymore that the idea or the concept of a team even really means anything because of free agency and stuff like that. But, the Lakers, the Celtics still kind of hold that weight. What do you think it is about the Celtics or Boston in general that kind of holds the team to a measure that kind of transcends free agency?
Ooh, yeah, I think from the perspective of the city of Boston, I think there's a similarity there between the tradition and the history of the Celtics that matters so much to these players that is carried on through every generation and every team. Boston is also like the cradle of liberty, right? And even in America, it's like all of the things and the values that we think of are like uniquely American. It all kind of took place in Boston. And so there is this like pride in that history that both the city and the team, I think there is a parallel there. But I think that we found that really Red Auerbach and Bill Russell, that those two men, their DNA is present through every Celtic team and every generation. That's not something made up. That's something I'm going to sit here and say based on the 98 interviews that we did and the individuals that we sat down with. There isn't a single person that didn't give, tip their cap or have great reverence for that history of the organization. And that goes down to Jalen and Jason and, this current team. So I do think that it is important and it is something that's real. And I think that the city is passionate about the team, as we know, but also just about history. I think that's important in Boston from what we learned through this journey.
And you can't ignore it. If you're a player, you can't ignore it. And so I think throughout the history of the Celtics, the players who embrace it are successful and they're beloved, and the players that don't embrace it, they're not there very long because it doesn't work. Yeah, I think that's the through line. Yeah, this history that Red started, and yeah, you're still seeing it today. These echoes that Lauren has been talking about. Yeah, there are echoes.
Definitely. I look at Boston and I look at Philly, and like they're to me like they're sports towns like no other, right? Like we kind of like are savage in our fandom for our teams, right? Like almost like we get a stipend or a paycheck from the teams to be, to be as fanatical as we are. I think that's one of the things that I appreciate about the Celtics as much as, as I said, kind of digs in my craw a little bit as a Sixers fan, but but something that I appreciate is like, I think we smell our own, what have you heard from, other than the people you got to talk to on the, for the documentary itself? I know you said you had the premiere. Have you heard from any kind of Boston fandom about what they think of what they've seen so far?
Not yet, Nate. I mean, I'm excited to get on the Reddit posts after this after this thing airs to see what the really get a pulse on the fan. But I mean, we've heard from some, people, the family members, Bill Simmons's dad, who I like to say like he's seen it all just like Bill has, and he's really happy with the series, and others who we know that we've shared it with. But right at this point, right, Gabe, we haven't really, until we really get it out there, starting Monday, we haven't had a lot of feedback yet because not many people have seen it. So yeah, I don't know, Gabe, if you had any.
Yeah, to me, it's like the only thing I've been doing, and I'm foolish for doing this sometimes, is like, yeah, you read the comments, right? They always say don't read the comments, but I read the comments. And so, yeah, on the trailer, like, yeah, you could tell the Celtic fans are like, inject this into my veins, and like, that's great, and I can't wait. But again, like to me, it's like, yeah, Boston Celtic fans are going to watch it, and they're going to have their thoughts, and they're going to feel nostalgic and all that stuff. And I'm sure there's always going to be something that they're like, Why didn't they mention this play? Oh, yeah, got it. But I do think that non-Celtic fans, even Sixer fans, if you can get through, yeah, hey, you're going to get through those first 2 episodes. By the way, you ended the dynasty run. So you have that.
It's true.
You have that feather in your cap. Yeah, there might be a rough spot in episode 4 for you, but you also get the better of the Celtics there. And then, yeah, but like, it's about the people. And I think we're going to change some minds. And I think people who never thought that they would ever have any feeling other than just complete disdain for a Celtic are going to understand that, like, yeah, we're all human beings and we all kind of interpret the world in similar ways. And I think that's what makes this series successful and stand out, is that we focus on that stuff. And yes, there is a game of basketball being played, but why are these things unfolding on the court is because of the people that are doing those things.
It's incredible. It's and you absolutely nailed it. Like I said, it's just a masterful thing that I've been able to experience so far watching it. Final question for you guys: what's next? Are you guys already on another project? Have you moved on to something else, or are you still able to
taking a nice nap?
That's right. Yeah, it was a very intense 2 years, Nate. I don't think there was a day that went by that we weren't thinking about this story or talking about it. So yeah, Gabe and I both are, taking a little break. But yeah, there's other projects in development that we're, both excited about. I'm excited about. But I'm also excited about this kind of 9 weeks of being able to hear the conversations and be part of the conversations about this film and start to hear the reaction and just really take a moment and step back and I'm just very grateful. I'm grateful that we were able to do this and it's about to air and it's complete. And I'm just gonna kind of revel in that for a little bit, Yeah.
For sure. Celtic City starts Monday, May 3rd, and then it releases every Monday after that through April, right? April 28th, I think, is the last one. It's absolutely incredible. Lauren, Gabe, thank you so much for joining me today. I am going to make you pick one thing before we end this, and I'm pretty sure I know what your answer is going to be, but I have to ask it anyway. Bill Russell or Wilt Chamberlain?
I mean, I'm going Russell. I don't know what. Yeah, I mean, I'm sorry, Nate. I don't know what you.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I'm not sorry, Nate. Yeah.
I love it. Guys, thank you so much for this. This is a great conversation. And the documentary is absolutely incredible. I can't wait for people to see it, and I can't wait for you to receive the praise you so deserve for it.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
My thanks again to Lauren and Gabe for joining me on the show today. The 9-part series, Celtic City, airs weekly on Monday nights at 9 p.m. through April 28th on HBO and then streaming on Max. Chapter 2, No Final Victories, debuts tonight at 9 p.m. Links are, of course, as always, in the show notes. If you haven't done so already, please be sure to subscribe to the Yo, That's My Jawn podcast wherever you get your podcast from. And gang, it is never too late to get yourself a super awesome Jawn Scout Merit Badge for Citizenship of the World just by rating and reviewing us. Don't forget to visit www.yothat'smyjawn.com for the link tree with links to articles, merchandise, all of the previous episodes of this podcast, guest appearances on other podcasts, and more. And while you are there, please be sure to sign up for our mailing list to get all of the updates delivered straight into your inbox. Like us on Facebook at facebook.com/YoThat'sMyJawn for updates and live streams. Follow us on Instagram, Threads, and Substack at Yo That's My Jawn, and search Yo That's My Jawn on YouTube to find the Yo That's My Jawn YouTube channel. Like and subscribe the heck out of that ish. We want to hear from you. Reach out, and touch some Jawn. I recorded a bunch of interviews for the pod this week, so don't be surprised if I drop an extra episode in the off weeks here or there. We have some great conversations ahead to share with you, so make sure you keep an eye out for them. Yeah. Blue skies. Until next time, everybody.
That's my Jawn! Displace the guilt and embrace the pleasure. You taste it, things that don't need to be measured.
Yo, That's My Jawn is a Lonely Monk production, written and produced by yours truly, Nate Runkle. Theme song by me, under the moniker Nate 3.0. Special thanks to Fox Run Brands, DX Ferris, Andrew Scott, Maggie Poulos, Dan Drago, Natalie Runkle, and the beautifully vibrant and wickedly stunning Katie Daubney. If you or anyone you know has any ideas they would like to share or any guests they would like to hear on the podcast, please feel free to reach out to us at yothat'smyjawn@gmail.com or hit us up on the socials at yothat'smyjawn. Until next time, be sure to displace the guilt and embrace the pleasure. Tilt your head back and shout to the world, yo, that's my Jawn.